Hello, Introduction Tubers, and welcome back to Let's introduce a new game, I suppose, with me, BlueAnkylo. So, it's been a while since I have done a Goldbox Dungeons & Dragons game, and we're going to start up our Champions of Krynn here today. So, I actually maybe should show you the introduction in the actual game, make sure everything's saved here. But before we get too far, and there's a lot of introduction for this episode, so we're not going to actually start really playing the game this is like episode 0. So episode 1 will be where we, head out there into the wild, wild world. But I just want to introduce the stuff. So in my timeline, it's 2020, middle of coronavirus season. And I have already on the channel played through the Pools of Radiance series. So Pool of Radiance, Secret of the Silver Blades, Curse of the Azure Bonds, Pools of Darkness. We played through all 4 of those, plus one of the Buck Rogers games. So I'm pretty familiar with these series. But I didn't really play those specific games as a child. What I did play was the Krynn game, specifically Death Knights of Krynn. So not this one, but the next one in the series. So I really am excited to get to that game. The main difference between the Krynn series and the Pools of Radiance series is we're in the Dragonlance version of Forgotten Realms. So there's some different lore in this realm than in previous ones. Also, the music is from OC Remix in the background. If you're wondering, the game doesn't have a lot of music, so we'll play variety music just to keep the background interesting. Anyway, so if you're a fan of Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance and all that, you kind of know some of the details. There are some big changes from normal world. There are different kinds of mages. A magic user is not just a magic user. Depending on their alignment, they will be a white mage if they're good, a red mage if they're neutral, or a black mage if they're evil. You can actually see moons at the top of the UI. They will go through the lunar phases, waxing, waning, full, and new. And depending on the phase, they have bonuses. So there's things like that are different. This world has a lot of dragons and draconic hybrid creatures. We'll learn more about them, of course, as we go along. There are special knights of Solamnic Knights. They are not quite like a paladin. They're kind of like a fighter class that's a holy knight sort of thing. So they're in here. We're going to have one of those in our party. What else is different from the other version? That's like the main stuff. Oh, there's Kender. So there's some new races. We can just see them all here. Kender are basically like hobbits or halflings. Got 2 types of dwarves and 2 types of elves. High elves, wood elves, half elf, human elf, dwarf that are in the mountains, dwarfs that are from, I don't know the difference, whatever. Anyway, that's kind of main thing. So let's have a little look at some of the guides we'll be looking at, the manuals that come with the game. Because we're going to talk about Goldbox Companion. That's the character sprites on the top and the map on the left of your screen. That's specifically a secondary program, and we will talk about that. But I kind of have an order here that we're going to go through. So, along with every good old school game, we've got... I need Goldbox Companion to go away for a second. I'll bring you back later. Every good old school game, like from the 90s, has awesome manuals. And for now, we have scans of those manuals. So this is your adventurer's journal. You also might want the clue book. I won't start with the clue book, but it is for only $19.99, maps can be yours. Luckily, we don't need them that badly nowadays, but if you're playing this for real on MS-DOS, you might want it. Anyway, so the Adventure Journal is going to cover most of the information we need to play the game. It does have journal entries from in-game lore that doesn't fit on a tiny little floppy disk, and the introduction, and obviously quite a lot of information. So we're going to skim through some of this. I will read this first introduction here, which is like our story introduction, maybe at the beginning of episode 1, just to tie that into the beginning of our quest. But, we've got a little bit of introduction there. We've got some information about the lands. This is kind of the map that we're dealing with, the geography of Northeast Ansalon. So I'm not like super familiar with this, but that's some of the areas we'll visit, and it's nice to have reference to these. Notably, this is a largely empty land with settlers, and very mountainous. So we've got a mountain dwarf that will be on our team, so that might help out a lot. There's also likely to be many hobgoblins, and I don't know, whatever other ogres. There's a city of ogres and a city of hobgoblins, so cool. If you want to read more about the classes, here you go. Hill dwarves, stubborn. Mountain dwarves, a little bit more refined. So, cool. We got Sylvanesti elves, the high elves, tall and arrogant, and the Qualinesti, which are more like wood elves and are a bit shorter and a bit friendlier, but still elves. Identical statistically, I believe. Notably in this game, elves, pure-blooded elves, if they die, they stay dead. You'd go blind. It's too small. There you go. I'll zoom in for you guys. We'll do one page at a time. There you go. That's way more manageable, right? Anyway, point is, elves, if they die, you can't resurrect them, so bringing a pure-blooded elf is actually a huge liability. That kind of sucks. Half-elves are fine. They can be almost anything. They're your jack-of-all-trades. Also, humans cannot multi-class wherever they are. It's multi-class are for these. Humans have a single class at a time. And then Kender, small people, never scared of anything, so not quite hobbits, but also quite resistant to magic, so that's nice. Apparently they can taunt as well, so that's fun. We got humans. We have all of the normal Dungeons & Dragons style ability scores. You guys know the drill by now, I hope. Strength for carrying weight and physical damage and hit rate. Intelligence for mage spells. Wisdoms for cleric spells. Dexterity to dodge things, mostly. Constitution for HP and some other things. Charisma for nothing, because it's a dump stat. Hit points to keep you alive. Experience points to learn new levels. And then our basic classes. Clerics do divine magic. They classically heal and support. Fighters fight. Rangers shoot arrows. We actually don't bring any rangers for a reason. Maybe I'll go over in a little bit. Solamnic Knights are the new ones, so that we can look at Solamnic Knights a little bit. These guys are the pride of Krynn. They have 3 different orders: Knights of the Crown, Sword, and Rose, and they all have extra good starting equipment, but very little money. So they've taken a vow of poverty and will donate 10% of their personal wealth when they enter a town. Keep that in mind for later. As they rank up, they donate everything. Or at least mostly everything. So be careful about that as they rank up. They do get experience bonuses as well. Kind of like paladins, you know. Similar, just not really. Mages, you know, standard magic spells, nothing special there. Thieves, also quite normal. The main thing for thieves will be backstabbing, and sometimes we might have an option to pickpocket, open a lock, like all the thief skills that don't apply to the video games very often. Then we got multi-classes, we've got alignments, we've got some party composition. You know, we don't need to talk about all that. Not right now. Let's see. There's some recommendations here in the manual for a good starting class. I already know what I'm doing. Oh, Kenders have a special Hoopak weapon. Yes, you can't be an evil character in most of these games, because reasons. They probably didn't want to program in a second set of evil mage spells, to be honest. Because you'd have to cut out... If you were a black mage, you could not learn Fireball, and that would be terrible. Anyway, old school Dungeons and Dragons mechanics. We'll talk about this more as we go on, but we have AC, negative AC, lower is better, and Thaco, which is chance to hit armor class 0 on a 20-sided dice. So if a unit has an AC of 0, then your Thaco out of 20 is your chance to hit, essentially. It's fairly easy. But as you get negative AC, it gets a little bit weird to calculate. And if it's positive AC, so default highest AC is 10. And I think default Thaco is 20. So you generally would have a 50-50 chance, like a 10 out of 20 chance to hit. Kind of, that's your vanilla stats. As your dexterity goes up, or you have armor, your AC goes down and can eventually hit negative numbers up to, I've seen up to like negative 15 or 20. If you can get to negative 20 AC with magic and armor and stuff, yeah, that's pretty crazy. And then Thaco starts at, 19 or 20 and goes down. As the number goes down, it becomes easier to hit things. The exact math is a little complicated. Well, it's not complicated. It's just hard to... You can read it here. It's hard to intuitively understand, I find. There's also some mechanics for backstabbing, missile attacks, and you get extra attacks per round as you level up. This is one of the main reasons I'm not bringing a ranger, actually. So fighters and knights get an extra attack per turn at 7th level. Rangers don't get it till 8th level, and let's just skim ahead real quick here. Every one of these games has a level maximum for different classes. It's basically an experience cap. Rangers have a level maximum of 7 in this game, which means no matter what, in Champions of Krynn, Rangers will never get a second attack. Fighters, however, if you can get them to level 8, will be able to get a second attack. So that actually kind of nerfs Rangers a lot. Like, that's a huge penalty. So, yeah, that's why no Rangers for now. Maybe next game. Anyway, continuing along. Standard Dungeons and Dragons rules, for the most part. Resting, memorizing magic is all in here, like the good old days. This is kind of an important one. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit, because this is kind of a new mechanic you might not be familiar with. So, we got people in chat. We're also live streaming, so sometimes chat will be helping us out with how things work. Anyway, we want to keep an eye on these moons. So, new moon, waning, waxing, full moon for the different colors. If you're a white mage, you get bonuses to your saving throws. You get more spells that you can memorize at any level you can cast. So that's a lot of extra spells at high levels. And an effective level at high level spell casting with good intelligence. So this would mean a fireball that does like 1d6 per level damage would count your level higher than it actually is and do even more damage. And there's a few spells that take advantage of that, like magic missile and stuff. So that would be pretty cool. But if you cast at the new moon, then you get the inverse negative effects. And I believe that applies to your enemies as well. So if you're fighting against, black mages at a black moon, a black full moon, you're gonna have a rough time. So that's a fun mechanic. I actually quite enjoy it. It's a little bit complicated, but full moon is good. New moon is bad. We're playing the after years now for Final Fantasy. Also, the different spells for the different alignments, primarily good, neutral, evil. They have the different kind of spell schools split up. We'll see in the spell list what this means exactly. Fortunately, our white and red mages can both learn evocation, but red can learn illusion, white cannot. And then enchantment, summoning, although there's very few summoning spells, and then abjuration versus alteration are the differences. So I find generally red mages are better, but white robe does get a couple things that red does not. We'll see the specific spells. How many Ankylo points for a meet and greet? Probably like 1 million. And before we kind of wrap this section up, these are your gods for your clerics now, which is another mechanic that old AD&D games didn't always have, like if you're playing the Pools of Radiance. So every one of our clerics has a specific god. Mishakal is probably my favorite for a good cleric, because you get +1 healing die on heal wounds, cure light wounds, cure medium wounds, all those sorts of things, and a bunch of good extra spells. If you want to make more of a cleric fighter, you might go Kira Jolith with extra Thaco, 5% more to hit. And if you want to turn undead, you might want to go Majir, which has 2 bonus levels for turning undead. Very good anti-undead. And then if you're neutral, you have options for bonus Burning Hands, another Thaco for dwarves, and another Charm Person. So we actually have a Shinari Elf, we have a Rayork's Dwarf, we have a Mishakal Human, or I can't remember, the Kender I think is Mishakal, and a Majir Humans, or Half-Elf, whatever. We have quite a variety of clerics in our party. Clerics are pretty good. Don't forget to say what I did. Wait, what did I do? Anyway, there's lots of monsters. We'll talk more about monsters as we find them in-game. Lots of them are Draconians. We're going to have to talk about Draconians one of these days. Clearly, this is not like your average D&D area where you fight a lot of goblins and zombies. There are Draconians everywhere and many a dragon. So if you're familiar with the normal dragons, blue dragon has lightning bolts, green dragon has acid, I think. Copper, the metallic ones tend to be good. There's black dragons, and then all of these guys are different types of Draconians. One of the problems with these guys is some of them have effects where you can lose your weapon. So Boss turn to stone when you kill them, which means you can lose it temporarily, but you get it back at the end of the battle if you win. But some of them are made of acid, and you can permanently lose your stuff, I believe. At least your non-enchanted stuff. So this guy dissolves into acid. You don't want to stand in the acid. It's been a while. I forget the exact mechanics, and like I said, we'll look it up more as we find them. But, you know, there's a lot of powerful draconians, and they have unique mechanics in there. Other than that, there's your regular, well, more and more dragons. Fireball dragons, gold, silver, white dragons for ice breath. You know, all kinds of crazy stuff. We're going to be fighting a lot of dragons. Well, the draconians are all over the place. So we'll be fighting draconians with regular weapons at the beginning of the game. Hopefully, the dragons will have specific counters for it. There are such magical weapons as the Dragon Lance, which is very good against dragons. But we'll talk about that if we ever get one. Then, of course, there's your regular slew of monsters, ghouls, minotaurs, all the normal stuff, basically. Lots of undead, even vampires and stuff. There's definitely liches at some point. Maybe not in this game, but the next one. And then, as usual, lots of magical gear, like any D&D game. There are some unique things like Solamnic Plate, which is basically plate mail. Just ornate plate mail. What will probably happen is we'll find specifically Solamnic Plate +2 or +3, you know, a quality magical plate. But only a Solamnic Knight could equip it, not a regular fighter. That's one of the reasons we have to bring a Solamnic Knight. What else is there? Oh, there's that Dragon Lance. They're really good against dragons. We've got the standard +1 to +5 enchanted weapons and all the cool magic missile wands and all that stuff. We'll look at journal entries. You know, they're kind of spoilers. We'll read those as we find them in game. And then to wrap this section up, there is some spells. Like, just to give you a quick concept, this is still an old game, so don't expect a whole lot of variety for the level spells. There's only 5 level 1 cleric spells. There's more mage spells, but remember, a red mage can only learn the ones with an R on them, so you get kind of 2/3 of them, and then the white mage gets the same thing. They only get about 2/3 of them. So, like, second level white mages can learn 1, 2, 3 spells total of second level. So there's really not a huge variety for certain levels and certain casters. I know modern D&D has dozens of spells. But this is kind of your classic Goldbox type of magic, and only up to level 4 casting. Once we get to the sequels and further on, we'll get higher level spells later. There's some basic armor, you know, old school. Plate mail has an AC of, like I said, no armor is AC 10, down to 3 with plate. If you had plate +5, that would be -2 on its own. If you had a dexterity bonus, that would also reduce it, so, you know. But it does decrease your movement, so it's got some penalty. We've got the old school constitution where fighters get up to +2 HP per level, but you need to be, or sorry, fighters get more, non-fighters get up to +2. Strength modifiers to hit and damage, and carrying, sort of who can equip what. Bonus spells for wisdom on clerics. There should be bonus spells for mages with intelligence. Did not give me a chart for that. I guess there's no chart for intelligence, but, you know, you can just imagine it's about the same as this, right? Except intelligence. One thing that I won't do, I'm gonna have to probably fix things, is the game is kind of old-fashioned. It has a smaller capacity for some characters based on their gender, and I'll generally just, if I have a female human, I'll just give them the 0/0 maximum rather than the 5/0 maximum. This is actually a fairly big difference, and, you know, that's silly. But otherwise, you know, dwarves have +1 constitution, -1 dex. Elves get +1 dex, but never get resurrected. Kender at the bottom. Maybe the girls get to 19 dexterity? But less wisdom? We'll have to think about that, actually, because this would mean a female Kender... Oh, no, the Kender both. They get the same. Anyway, so Kender get dexterity at the expense of wisdom. I was looking at half-elves. Half-elves are normal, yeah, same as humans. Anyway, kind of old school. Because of Goldbox Companion, I can get past any of these dumb level caps. And then, you know, weapons and armor and all that. Okay, so that's like lots and lots and lots and lots of introduction for how these games work. That's enough for the manual, I think. So I'd like to talk about Goldbox Companion a little bit before we get too far in here. So obviously I'm playing a DOS game using DosBox. I actually bought it from GOG.com, which is a pretty reputable site. And the additional things you'll see on screen shortly, those are from... Oh, geesh. Sometimes I've got, like, because of everything on screen, it's hard to move my windows around. Hold on. Gotta be able to see everything at the same time. So this is Goldbox Companion. I've talked about it in the past for my other games. The Kender get gender equality. The Kender gender. Yeah. So, you know, the things at the top there, that's got a menu behind it with a bunch of extra features. It also keeps track of current HP, experience, and if you want, you can also have it include things like current effects from spells and all that. It's very, very useful to have while you're playing along. The map, there will be an auto-mapping feature as you explore towns and dungeons, which is very, very, very helpful. And generally, I cannot recommend it enough. If you're trying to play one of these games in 2020 or 2030, whatever year it is, I highly suggest having a look at Goldbox Companion. Just Google it. It's easy to download and install. Getting this set up, I've done a tutorial on it before. It takes a little bit of fiddling. You have to save your game, and then you have to have the Goldbox Companion find that save file with the character names in memory, and then it starts hooking into all the other aspects. So it's a little bit fiddly, but it's definitely worth the effort. We'll talk more about Goldbox Companion as we play. It does lots of good stuff. So, let's have a look at our characters, and I think we'll be almost done the introduction. Next episode, we'll get to gameplay, and we'll probably cover the story intro a little bit more seriously. So, our characters. Now, the current stats are the fair stats that we rolled with the reroll button, but we're not going to actually stick with that. Don't worry. So, Aaron will be our Knight of the Crown, a Solamnic Knight. And it doesn't actually show his armor or anything yet, because we're in character gen, we don't actually see their gear. But he will start with some cool weapons and very little money. We actually use steel coins for money for now. Salami Knight, exactly. Now, his default stats are looking pretty good. 18-79 strength, 18 intelligence, 18 wisdom, 17 dex, 15 con, 16 charisma. That's crazy. You can, of course, just change them to whatever you want, right? But look at the bottom part, the Thaco and damage there on the bottom left. Look at how much more damage bonus you get from getting from, like, if you just have 18 exactly, just to give you an idea here, just a flat 18, you have a Thaco of 19 with no weapon and a modifier of +2. So you get -1 Thaco from your strength and +2 damage from your strength. If we go up to 18-100, which is incredibly hard to roll on a 100-sided dice, now we have a -3 Thaco and a +6 damage. It's a huge difference. So we're going to have that. Now, intelligence doesn't actually make anything. It's completely a dump stat for this character. So I'm not sure exactly what I'll stick with, but, you know, it doesn't really make any difference. So we'll do some points. You know, I added a bunch of points to strength, so I'll reduce a couple points from intelligence. Wisdom also, I don't think makes any difference, so we'll keep him at like 16 or something. It's not like he's a paladin. He doesn't learn cleric magic. At least not yet. Yeah, just leave it like that. Now, you would want maximum dexterity, because 14 dexterity is base. If you go too low, well, you can't even go below your penalty, but you can technically lose AC from going too low. But you definitely want to go max dexterity to get the lowest AC. So if you're just re-rolling and re-rolling, right now you want to see as close to 1800 as you can get, 1800 and 18 dex. Now, Constitution is less of an advantage right now, but it will be a scaling benefit as we level up. So changing this doesn't change anything besides our bonus to HP per level. But that's pretty good. And then because this is kind of my leader, I generally go with 18 charisma. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of 18s. It's just the way it goes. We'll say he's got 12 intelligence. He's just averagely smart. I agree. I know, I understand that it's a little bit min-maxy abusive, but it's the way the game was designed. I think it's fine. Also, we can change your HP. So, if we go to maximum HP roll, you can kind of see his hit dice. Con 18 should be +4 per level. So, it actually goes, right, plus 4 per hit dice. He starts with 2 hit dice, and we can see what they are if we go down to here. So, what this, you can kind of see it right here. Essentially, knights have a D10. So, every level up, they'll have a 1 to 10 roll. Also, see you later, Rob. Thanks for hanging out. 1 to 10, basically. If you have more constitution, you'd add 1, or 2, or 3, or 4 once you get to 18. So that gets us to each hit dice gives you 2 more potential. So he's got 2 hit dice, 2 d10s with +4 HP per hit dice, which is how we get to 28. So basically his maximum is 14 HP per level, which is pretty good. And we'll just keep that. So that's one of our characters. Next up, Thornum. So this time we've got a mountain dwarf, and one of my goals for character design was to have a varied party, a diverse party. It's not necessarily the most optimal party, but I want to have as many different classes and races as I can fit in, just for kind of interest's sake more than necessarily the best. But we went with a fighter cleric, because a fighter gets the strength above 18. If you're not a fighter, if you're a pure cleric, you only can have 18 strength, which means you miss out on a lot of stuff. And you also don't get the +4 con bonus per level. And one of the big perks of being a dwarf is you can get to 19, which means, again, if we want to check the hit dice here, we'll go back to 12, go to his maximum HP, which is that it? It's just, does he get 1d14 or something? How does that work for a cleric fighter? It's complicated with multi-class. I forgot how that works. If a fighter is a d10 and a cleric is a d6, it takes half of them. So it'll be 1 to 10 divided by 2 and 1 to 6 divided by 2. So you can get 1 to 5 plus 1 to 3 or something like that. Essentially, that gets us to 14. The bonus from con is also complicated for multi-class, but let's see, it goes from 14 up to 20. So you got +6 in total. It is, multi-class characters and HP is a very complicated formula, and I don't want to get into that right now. But the Constitution still helps. Actually, I think the con bonus only applies to his fighter levels, which is level 2, and not his cleric levels, which is level 1. So a cleric level gets half of his hit dice plus 2 HP from con, and then his fighter gets half of the fighter hit dice plus the whole con, probably still divided by 2. It's really weird. So don't try to calculate their HP. It's crazy. Anyway, that said, after I've blown everyone's mind, dwarves can only get to 99 strength. They're actually weaker than humans. So what I might do is in Goldbox edit this so that we can have human fighter strength, and that will give him +1 damage. Or I might not. I'm not sure. But you know, that's, I feel like it's not really fair for a dwarf to be weaker than a human. We could just give him, he's our moderator, Thornum's our chat mod. We could decrease his intelligence a little bit so you guys can get away with more stuff in chat. I wouldn't expect a fighter cleric to be particularly known for being intelligent, so we'll keep it a little bit on the lower end. We will go max wisdom and dexterity because they have direct implications. He does get a max of 17 dexterity, so we're not changing anything like that. And then charisma, well, dwarves are not known for being charisma. 16 is his actual maximum rather than 18 like normal. So he'll probably go, I mean, he's a gruff dwarf. He's the mod. No one likes the mod giving them a ban. So we'll actually give him kind of below average charisma. We'll go with a 7. It won't make any difference. It's not like charisma does anything in this game. We could give everyone 3 charisma and it wouldn't matter. I mean, I'm pretty sure. But that makes it look like his stats aren't all 18s. And I feel like that's kind of nice. Even though they're super optimized. Yeah. Done. Next character. Pixel. 350-year-old female Sylvanesti hoity-toity elf that's very snooty. and basically makes fun of the rest of the party, but everyone else knows that one day this elf will die, and because it has no real soul, it will not be resurrected and they'll be gone forever. So that's our pixel. So Shinari Cleric is the charm person. So it's a neutral cleric, neutral type cleric, neutral type mage. That's where the lawful neutral comes from. The Shinari bonus gets us... what does it get us? It gets us a charm person spell, but not much else. The good clerics get kind of better cleric bonuses, but we are a red mage. So, you know, that's fun. Tolkien's dwarves were charismatic? Well, not D&D dwarves, right? Anyway, it's totally different. So anyway, basically... Wait, what? We're gonna fix this in post. Because Pixel's a female elf, maximum of 16 strength. That's not very nice. Maybe we'll just give Pixel perfect stats because he'll probably die anyway. She'll probably die anyway. I'm gonna change the strength though. Let me just have a look at my manual here. What's the rationalization on this one, Gygax? Let's see. Sylvan SD elves. Female Sylvan SD elves have a maximum of 16 strength. A male, if all we did was change Pixel from female to male, their strength would go to a maximum of 1875. Look at that nuts. That's insane. That's 2 points of strength plus a lot of Thaco and hit dice. Or a lot of Thaco and damage. It's crazy. I don't understand it. So what we can do then is, because in-game you can't change things like that, and what that means is in-game, a female elf is always worse than a male elf. We're not playing like that on this channel, not in 2020. So this is gonna be our first example of hacking. We're gonna pull up the Goldbox editor, which you guys can't see, but I can see, and I'm just gonna go 1875 because that will work. Strength 18. Where's strength -2? Hello? Yeah, there it is. Apply, close, apply changes. Type cheat to activate cheat mode. Okay. Cheat mode activate. And now if we view again, bam. Cheating. Take that. Now, this elf, this girl elf, is as strong as any man elf. Now, they're not as strong as a human, but I figure at least getting rid of the gender difference is probably appropriate. And it's perfect stats, so enjoy that. That's what you get. The game tries to nerf the girls, and blue gives them the best stats. White Knight Blue comes in there, rolls out the red carpet, makes them more overpowered than they should be. Alright, that'll do for the moment. Next up, Tim. So Tim is another cleric fighter mage. I know we've got two of the same class, but this one's a good mage, a good cleric. So we have two fighter cleric mages, but one is good, one is neutral, one's an elf, one's a half elf. We'll probably like Tim a lot more because he's not as snooty. But because it's a half elf, we can automatically go up to 90 strength because they're stronger than normal elves. They don't get to 19 dexterity, but, you know. We're going to say by being a half-elf, you're not as loved. You can just be 11. Tim, we'll give him 11 charisma. Yandere, -2. Tim's also one of our live chatters, of course. Actually, did I remember to add HP? Yeah, I think I did. That's a lot of HP. Very nice. How does our multi-class elf, half-elf, have more HP than, like, pure-blooded knight? Our dwarf with 19 constitution has less HP than our multi-class characters. Don't worry, as soon as he gets a couple level ups, it'll balance it out. But I believe I've been maxing everything correctly, so let's keep going. Okay, so we've got 2 multi-class, and then a fighter cleric, and a knight. Next up, Drow. We need a cleric thief. Now, I almost made a pure thief, just so we could get backstabbing, but a pure thief is really boring. There's not a lot of value you can get out of thieves. You also might notice there's some problems here for Drow. 16 strength? Okay, we don't need to be super smart. We can just be normal for Drow. Also, see, I don't know. We'll see how I feel about that. To be fair, having 18 Constitution doesn't even do anything. We'll make sure everyone loves Drow, though. So Drow as a Kender is kind of my support healer slash thief. This is going to be one of our weirder classes, because Kenders have low capacities for strength and wisdom. And I don't even think changing to male would have gotten us around the strength penalty. Kenders are just halflings. They're not very strong. For some reason, they're not very wise. So for a cleric with a 16 wisdom cap, that's kind of rough. So that's what you get. We have a lot of dexterity, which is good. They have a unique weapon, which is a ranged sling type weapon. We'll see how this turns out. It might be terrible, but we'll try. At least you can get 18 HP. You're not going to get killed by 1 magic missile. So, you know, we'll go with that. I'm not gonna try to break stats for racial maxes for now, at least, because, you know, there's got to be some balancing between the classes. I'm not sure what makes Kender good enough to have a -2 wisdom, -2 strength, but that's what you get. And we could give them, we could put them at a 20 dexterity or something later on. That'd be fair, right? And thieves do level up very quickly, so there's some advantages. Okay, and then our final character, Rob, is a pure mage. Now, this is the most dangerous of our classes in terms of glass cannonry, basically. So, Rob, the reason I went with a white mage is, a pure mage, that is we want to get level 3 mage magic as quickly as possible, which requires a character level of 5. And then we can get fireballs, which makes everything better. Once we get to the next game, or even later on in this game, I might consider class changing Rob a little bit, whether in-game via the class change mechanic or via some hackery. We can keep his experience the same and maybe do some hokery-pokery, but a pure mage is going to be very, very, very vulnerable. We'll cut a couple points in wisdom. We'll make sure you're maxed int. I don't know. I might change these later on. But pure mage only really needs 18 intelligence, dexterity, max constitution for growth. You don't actually get any value for constitution 18. And then, you know, that's fine for now. But look at that poor HP. What's your favorite spell? Of course it's Fireball. Of course. Anyway, Rob will level up very quickly because he doesn't have to share his experience between 3 classes. He'll get better spells quicker, which will help us out in the early game. But he will also hit his level cap earlier, which is going to be level 7 or 8. And at that point, he won't gain any more experience. And that's when I might try to do some reclassing. And I know that's kind of breaking the design of the game a little, but, you know, I think we'll manage. Okay, I think that's all for character design. So that gives us essentially a pure mage, 2 cleric fighter mages, a cleric thief, a cleric fighter, and a pure fighter knight. That's a pretty well-balanced party. That's a lot of clerics and a lot of mages, which tend to be the most useful, I find. We skip rangers because rangers actually miss out on an extra attack in this game, and all that. At the top, you know, if you're looking at the top of the screen there, those are not our final artwork. Like, we're going to change some of the sprites on these guys at some point. Let's see, where's the option for that? Not modify, it's... I think we have to start the game. Don't forget to edit your strength. Do you want... Wait a second, who's that? Thornum? We really need Thornum to be stronger than a dwarf? Dwarf +1? Maybe. Maybe. I'll decide that after I'm done this episode. That's breaking the racial norms. Anyway, yeah, the sprite work at the top will change a little bit. We'll give them more identifiable color palettes. Everyone has a custom weapon right now, like Aaron with a sword and board, Thorin with a hammer, Pixel with a bow, Tim with a flail, Jaral with the hoopak thing, and Rob with a staff. But I will try to make them color-coded a little bit so they're more identifiable in battle. And yeah, next episode we'll actually get to play in the game a little bit. Should be fun. So let's make sure we save every time. Don't forget to save. Hope you enjoyed the introduction, future tubers. Next time, we jump into the world of Krynn. See you next time.